Welcome back to another edition of Intelligent Investment Today, the podcast dedicated to bringing to you the ideas of value investment as laid down by the father of the craft, Benjamin Graham. In each episode, we examine a different concept and consider how it relates to stock market investment today. So if you want to learn the same lessons that helped Warren Buffett become the most successful investor of all time, you really need to know what his professor at Columbia Business School back in 1949 had to say. I'm David Coombs, and this is Intelligent Investment Today. Today's topic is yet another vitally important one when it comes to successfully executing value investment. Indeed, in all types of investment. Unfortunately, it is one that Graham had a lot to say about. In today's episode, we shall be talking about diversification. For anyone who may not have come across the term before, diversification, when it comes to investing in the stock market, is all about spreading your investments around so that your exposure to any one business, location or industry is limited. It's all about, if you like, making sure not to place all your eggs into one basket. It is pretty obvious that anyone who places all their assets into just one business risks, through bad luck or error of judgment, losing the shirt off their back. Having a well-diversified portfolio means that making one bad choice will not wipe you out financially. So what sort of things did Graham say the intelligent investor should consider when deciding on a diversified portfolio? Graham was keen to point out that in order to achieve a truly well-diversified portfolio, the investor will require, wherever possible, to select stocks for inclusion in their portfolio that are as unrelated to each other as possible. For instance, a portfolio containing 20 stocks that all operate in the airline sector might offer some protection against individual failure of a business, but will not protect the investor at all during a sector-wide downturn, as every business in that sector may face an existential threat. We saw exactly this during the COVID pandemic. So as well as spreading risk across multiple businesses to achieve a healthy level of diversification, the investor will also do best by spreading their investments across multiple industries to avoid a collapse in the value of their portfolio during a sector-wide recession. To a lesser extent, location of the business will also be a factor when considering what constitutes a well-diversified portfolio. Recessions are not always a global affair, and having investments spread across multiple global regions can prevent big dips in a portfolio's valuation when downturns occur in individual local markets. We are talking more specifically here about diversification of the stock market component of your portfolio. But of course, if we are thinking about diversification of your assets more generally, then of course we will be talking about diversifying against a general drop in stock prices, which can be achieved by having other components within the portfolio that makes up your net worth. This could be through holding high-grade bonds, property, or cash, amongst other things. In short, diversification should be all about creating a sense of confidence in your portfolio, and this is achieved by not concentrating risk in any one particular place. So I hope now we can all understand the benefits of diversification and why it is so important to the investor. But whilst some diversification is most definitely the intelligent way to go about investing, you can in this case really have too much of a good thing. While too little diversification means the investor runs the real risk of losing a large chunk of their net worth should things not turn out quite as intended, too much diversification, on the other hand, will reduce the chances of outperforming the general market and in fact make active stock picking a waste of time and energy. At most times in the stock market, true bargains are not like fishes in the sea. They are a rare commodity and can be hard to come by. So even Warren Buffett himself is going to struggle to find many more than 20 or 30 that really jump out at him as genuine bargains. So to diversify your portfolio beyond these 20 or 30 bargain stocks will mean that you have to include stocks that increasingly and admittedly are not so attractive on value grounds. As Warren Buffett points out, you only have so many good ideas, so investing in your not so good ones is only ever going to drag down the performance of your portfolio as a whole. Holding a large menagerie of stocks also means that the investor is less able to devote the required time and attention to them, resulting in a sort of neglect, which may mean investors missing important news or developments that may require action on their part. Once you reach a certain point of over-diversification, your best ideas or the investments that you're most enthused about as value opportunities will barely shift the needle on your overall investment results, no matter how well they perform. Once this point is reached, you should no longer waste your time and effort on stock picking. For a tracker fund, that is one that buys a little of every single stock on a particular index, will likely do a better job of achieving results without the need of any effort whatsoever on the part of the investor. So if we concede that some diversification in a portfolio is essential, but that too much diversification eliminates the whole point of stock picking, that is the desire to outperform the market as a whole, then how many stocks exactly should the intelligent investor hold in the stock component of their portfolio? As always with these things, it is likely to depend. In his book, The Intelligent Investor, Graham suggests that a portfolio of between 10 and 30 stocks should provide adequate diversification. Exactly where an investor will sit within this range will depend on a number of factors. One such factor to consider is the actual availability of bargain stocks at any particular time. At the peak of a bull market, true bargains will be much more difficult to come by than when the stock market is depressed. If the investor can uncover 30 genuine bargain issues, then they are obtaining the added benefit of increased diversification, essentially free of charge. But during the height of a bull market, when real bargains are few and far between, the investor must concede that they will pay a price in terms of a drag on their portfolio's overall performance for any stock purchase for the sole intention of increasing diversification if that stock sits outside their list of best ideas. Let's state that another way, just for clarity. If the investor only has 10 good ideas due to the strength of the overall market, then choosing an 11th business to invest in will increase diversification, but it will do so at the expense of the overall portfolio's performance. In other words, the added diversification will not come for free. When markets are depressed and bargains are plentiful, the investor may well have 30 good ideas, that is 30 genuine bargains, and then the added diversification does indeed come for free. The only caveat there being, of course, is that there will be an added burden of keeping your eye on 30 individual businesses instead of just 10. But the investor may deem that it is worth the extra effort for the added protection offered by the additional diversification. The stock picker's personal circumstances will also come into the equation when considering what levels of diversification they require to guarantee a sound night's sleep. An investor who is confident in their ability not only to pick bargain stocks, but confident in their temperamental ability to ride the emotional roller coaster that is the stock market, may well feel comfortable to diversify more towards the lower range of Graham's suggested figures, whereas a less experienced value investor may require the comfort of diversifying more towards the upper limits, which gives them the psychological comfort that they can make an individual mistake without wiping out their entire portfolio. In summary, it can be said that diversification is essential in any stock market portfolio. Even the investment greats will occasionally pick a dud, and a well-balanced portfolio will mean that this need not come to define the overall outcome. On the other hand, we can see that too much diversification can also be a bad thing, because it means that increasingly the investor's results will look like the stock markets as a whole. This may actually not be a bad thing, inasmuch as most investors, even professional ones, do not regularly beat the market. But if the whole point of investing time and effort into value investment is to achieve better than average results, then this makes active stock picking something of a fool's errand. This is especially true when you can buy an index tracker fund, which will do the job of mirroring the index for you and will save you a lot on transaction fees into the bargain. Somewhere between 10 and 30 stocks that are as unrelated as possible, held within a portfolio, is likely to be the Goldilocks zone when it comes to diversification. Where exactly an investor sits in this range will depend on the availability of bargain issues at that particular time and the confidence the investor has in their own ability. On this score, I suggest the good night's sleep test. If you're ever tossing and turning thinking about the devastating effects of any single failure within your portfolio, you should perhaps think about moving up the range. Fear can lead very quickly to irrationality, and to avoid this, it is important, first and foremost, that your level of diversification leaves you in a comfortable headspace. That is it for this episode of Intelligent Investment today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please do consider spreading the word to fellow enthusiasts. It is my goal to make this as big a community of like-minded investors as possible. Also, please hit the subscribe button so that you'll be alerted as soon as a new edition lands on your platform. I'm David Coombs. This has been Intelligent Investment today. Until next time, stay safe and happy investing.